Welcome to our lunch keynote session called The Big Idea Talks. Now I'd like to turn to our next speaker, Edwin Chrostowski. Brandon is the founder and CEO of EDWINS Leadership and Restaurant Institute in Cleveland. EDWINS combines award-winning French cuisine, top-tier table service, and a unique social cause, using culinary education and leadership training to change the face of reentry for the formerly incarcerated. Think of it as sous vide and second chances. Brandon is a highly trained chef and sommelier who has cut his teeth at the world's best restaurants, such as Charlie Trotter's, Le Cirque, and Le Pavillon. His grit and determination has not only led to his personal success, it has also helped hundreds of students turn their lives around through the dignity of work, and it has led to the revitalization of downtown Cleveland. Brandon's mantra is make it happen, and we cannot wait to see what he makes happen here today. Please help me welcome Edwin Chrostowski.
All right. Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you. How's everyone doing today? All right? We're at the Breakers, man. This is the best. This is the best. Great hospitality. I got to give a shout out to Esther, Annie. I mean, what great planning. 100%. We have a student coming from Edwin's, and Esther even have her mother, Margaret. Is Margaret in the crowd too? Margaret, thank you. Went to the airport to pick him up, and that, come on, that's above and beyond. So big thanks to the hospitality you're providing here, and thank you for listening and hearing this one out. So this is gonna be simple. I'm gonna tell you about a story, right? A story about a guy who looked like me about 24 years ago. Less gray hair, a lot of energy, still a big chip on his shoulder, but it's really a story about redemption. It's about forgiveness and mentorship, and it's really these two principles that guides the mission today at Edwin's. So go back with me here, okay? The story is going to begin with myself in county jail. And I was facing a 5 to 10 year prison sentence that I actually got probation instead. So I found myself in front of that judge, not knowing what was going to happen. In fact, I didn't even know what freedom was, as many as you may not, until you lose it. And that's where it truly comes into play. And I remember seeing that judge and saying, I just hope something good happens, and probation did. But that was the first step, forgiveness. I had forgiveness from a judge. The second was I had a mentor, okay? And many of you, probably all of you have had a mentor, but this one was a bit different. His name was George. He was a chef. He had, these fat fingers like andouille, not like chorizo. I mean, they were thicker, okay? And George, he taught me something. He taught me something very important. He said, Brandon, it's not practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. And with his lessons in culinary arts and hospitality, it got me out of the city of Detroit and around the world. And I'm not kidding you, around the world. I was fortunate enough to go to the Culinary Institute of America, Hyde Park, New York. Have any of you eaten there? Okay, good. All right, so you got an appetite. I went from there, apprentice under Charlie Trotter. Does anyone know Charlie Trotter? Oh, my goodness, what a wacko, man. This guy, he was something else. God bless him. He pushed you to the limits. He had you believing you could do anything you can with what you have, okay? And from there, it was off to France. And the funny thing is, when I went to France, I'm flying over the Atlantic, I realized I couldn't read, write, or speak the language. I have a different opinion about how to approach things, shoot, aim, fire. But nonetheless, I'm flying over. But the greatest lesson I learned, perhaps in my life, was that hard work doesn't have a language. It doesn't. It didn't look at me, the color of my skin, my ethnicity, my past. It didn't look at any of that. It looked at the hard work I was giving. Nonetheless, I finished up in France, and I said I'm going to be the best chef in the world. And we all know New York City's the world, right? Anything west of the Hudson doesn't count. So, and I was on my way. I was climbing the ranks, working at Le Cirque and Michelin and all these great restaurants. But I got a call one day from George. I still can't figure out how he dials a phone with his fingers. And he says, Brandon, do you remember Quentin? I said, yes, I remember Quentin. Quentin and I grew up in that kitchen in Detroit together. Quentin was a young African-American man, sweet as could be, from Georgia. And we lost our culinary innocence together, if you know what I mean. Like, we julienne for the first time together. We made mayonnaise. Has anyone made mayonnaise from scratch? Okay, come on. It's like a miracle. It's a miracle. You keep putting the oil in, and next you know it becomes a substance. And you're like, this is amazing. We lost that together. And I'll never forget it. And he called me, and I'm sitting there. It was right near St. Patrick's Cathedral, because I'll never forget it, because I went inside and prayed after this. He said, Brandon, do you remember Quentin? I said, of course, of course. He said he's been murdered. countless times stabbed in a building, found dead. And I said to myself, when I went back to work, like any other day, you kind of just put that armor over your heart and you keep moving. But I couldn't figure out how I'm sitting here working on copper pots, on Bonnet ovens, selling Eschazot from Domaine Romane Conti, and someone's not even here in this world existing. And it didn't sit well. And that was 2004. That was 18 years ago today. And I said, there's got to be a way to make a change, and I know how to make this change. It's open a restaurant that could save the world, and I know it could because it saved mine. And it wasn't brain surgery to figure out we have a problem in this country with recidivism, okay? If you don't know what that is, it's not a spice. It's the rate at which someone returns back to prison, okay? We incarcerate over 2 million people a year in this country. 600,000 plus come home each year, and nearly 40 to 50% will come back within 3 years, okay? It's an issue, if not a crisis. So that was the idea, EDWINS. It sounds simple. It took 9 years to figure out, though. And so what is EDWINS? EDWINS right now is a French fine dining restaurant, okay? Much like the Breakers, but I would argue a little bit better, okay? A little bit better. No offense. There's CIA grads here, too. I can't go too hard. At any event, it's a 6-month training program open to men and women who are coming or affected by the criminal justice system. They come into our program and they get the perfect practice. We train for 6 months. So we train with hospitality fundamentals, we teach with the kitchen fundamentals, and we make sure that when you leave the program, not only do you have the skill is number 2, you're rehumanized. That's number 1. Because we break, we rebuild. We have these pillars that are very simple. You know, we receive and meet someone where they're at. Okay, we never ask about what they did in their past, believe it or not. You know, we make sure that we teach to the top, right? Perfect practice makes perfect. We care. Let me tell you about the care. If anyone thinks when there's a problem in a society, okay, Hannah mentioned this, you know, it's up to civil society to correct. The problem we had with reentry wasn't just the skill, it was the care. And so when the issue of housing came up, you know what we did? We built it. And now we've got a campus, 4 buildings, 2 apartment buildings, and then we have a family house, and we have another house for alumni, okay? That's important to have a safe home with a great environment. We wanted to double down on our education, so we built a library. There's a fitness center. There's even a place where we have a butcher shop and bakery open to the public, okay? We're doubling down on education. So when you say care, we've got to care, okay? The other things we do is we make sure we get out of the way. It's really important to give someone the perspective of this industry or a career and then move out of the way so they can rock and roll. And let me tell you, this has led to some great things already. I told you about the different restaurants, the butcher shop, the bakery. We've got 2 restaurants here in Cleveland, Ohio. And just 3 months ago, signed on a building so we can do free childcare. So come December, our students who have a family that need the opportunity but can't because of childcare, we're providing that one too. Because it's an issue that we can solve. You know what it takes? It takes an ask. I need you, okay? That's what we do. Let me tell you where these results have led us to, okay? It's led us to this, less than 1% recidivism. Less than 1% of the men and women in our program go back to prison because they found a career and they found they've got a support system, okay? It's possible. And where do we go from here? Because it's like we're already on the moon, but we got to go to the stars, okay? We got to go to the stars. So where do we go from here? Right now, we've doubled down with our management training program. If you go to the breakout session, you'll hear from one of our men that have come through the program or is in the management training program. They manage each one of our 3 restaurants for about a couple months, and the next thing you know, they move on to a $70,000, $80,000 career, okay? That's important. 2, what else? We're getting nationwide. And what does that look like? We are in prisons across this country on tablets. So imagine like a little iPad, but much more clunkier, probably less efficient. And these are in prisons across America. We work with the top 4 communication companies. Our content is provided to nearly 500,000 inmates across this country. Nearly 500,000 inmates can right now go on a tablet, watch 30 hours of video. I mean, if you think it's boring watching bechamel get made, it's not, okay? We make it exciting. You watch the video, you take tests and quizzes, and you also read the curriculum. But the best part of this is we have these great partners in Cleveland called the Cleveland Browns, Dee and Jimmy Haslam, and they've pledged to pay for anyone who completes that program to come travel to Cleveland, Ohio on them. So now we're getting people from all over the country, and it's been great. But the next step for us is To me, the next way to grow is to open reentry service centers in cities across the country. Because what we're finding after someone takes our program, if they do decide to stay home, there's not a whole lot of services in certain parts of this country, believe it or not, okay, serving men and women coming out of prison. So our goal is to open them up across the country. And this is very important because this can change a city. It can change a city. And it's not about being soft on crime. Anyone out there who says this is soft on crime, this $74 billion problem that consumes all of our monies is soft on crime. It's not. It's being hard on someone's goals. It's being hard on someone's ambitions. But the problem is it's going to take everybody. And I mean everybody. Everybody in this room can contribute. In fact, I need you to contribute because you have influence. And the thing about influence is it can change the perception of how someone's view that comes out of prison, which is half the battle. And the other half you can help change is the way someone views themselves who comes out of prison, because it's awfully dehumanizing what happens there. But it's going to take all of you. And if it's possible, what it could change is countless lives and families and beyond. So that's what I ask you to do today. Use your influence. Talk to, if you own a business, talk to your HR department. If you don't own a business, talk to owners and say, are you hiring people coming out of prison? Use your influence when it comes to, talking amongst your little circles and say, or big circles and say, hey, what about this problem of reentry? Make it more mainstream, make it more acceptable. Foundations out there, give to it because it can change the world. It can. It changed mine, it can change the world. And if we can influence this, we can change the tide. I'll finish with this. Giving's a funny thing, and that's what we're here to talk about, right? Giving. And when you think about giving, you think about money here, you think about some time here, you think about maybe a board membership. If we're going to reimagine reentry or reimagine philanthropy, you have to look at this. It's not how much you give, and it's not exactly where you give. It's how you're giving as a human and how you're staying with this process. Some of our best donors and our best contributors have been those that have been with us, care for us. When things get tough, they stick with it. And the next thing you know, they're watching not just lives change in organizations, they're watching their lives change in their philanthropy. So ladies and gentlemen, while we eat lunch, because I don't want to get in the way of that or Kareth's speech, because I'm looking forward to a funny moment. I've never sat next to a real comedian. Like I'm pretty fired up. Think about how you're giving, how you're sticking with this group that you're giving to, because with your determination, we can change it. All right. Thank you very much.